Today I'm going to show you how to make this button animation with a single class that can be used across any button on your website. Now, as a preface, I am using automatic CSS for my framework, which gives me global variables for my buttons, such as the padding, the background color on hover, that type of thing. You can probably do this with any other framework. If you're not using a framework, it's going to be a little bit more complicated, but it's definitely doable. So I will break down how we can build this with just one single class across any button. Now, before we get into it, I want to break down the animation first and explain one thing. So if we take a look at this animation, we see a couple things. There's a piece of text that's just kind of there automatically. And when you hover, that piece of text pushes down while another one comes on top. So there's something that we need to do. We need to add two elements. And the button is actually acting like a container. If we take a look at the a button without that class added, if we try to... Let's go to this button or this link here, and let's just add a transform translate of Y. We'll just do 10 pixels. We can see if we try to transform it, that button itself moves down. So what we need to do is treat the button like a container and add a couple elements inside of it that we can control, and we'll transform those inside of this button container. So let's break this down. All right, so here's my button here. I'm going to create a class of, let's say, button waterfall. And what we need to do is we need to have two elements. So the one that stays stationary, that's there by default and pushes down, and the one that comes on top, we need a before and after pseudo element. So let's go to style, we'll go to CSS, we'll type in root. And what we want to do now is just kind of target both. So we'll do root before and we'll do root after. And we want some content in these, and the content is going to match the content that is in our button. So we'll just say start your project. So we can see we have three elements now. Here's the thing, we got to make sure that we can actually change the text inside of our before and after element. And in order to do that, we can't do it in the CSS, we need to do a data attribute. So we're going to go to attributes, add attribute, and we're going to call this just data content. And this one will say start your project. And we can change the data attribute on each button individually to match our actual link text. So we'll go back in here, and in order to sync that, we need to use attribute. So it's attr and then parentheses, and we're gonna go data content, and boom, it's in there. And now what we want to do is we want to actually hide the default link text. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop this down a little bit, and we're gonna go root, and we're gonna say color transparent. And let's just go ahead and say important. We probably have some override. That's why we had something that was overriding it. So we'll go important, and now we can see that all the text is transparent. But let's bring back that before and after element and actually make those visible. So let's go root before. Let's make the before elements a color of red for now. And then we'll make our after element, so root after. Let's make this a color of blue. Perfect. Now we can see those elements. Well, now they're sitting all the way on the sides. Let's go ahead and bring those in with a position absolute. So let's give our button itself a position of relative, and let's give our before and after a position of absolute. And then we'll do an inset of 0 just to be safe. Good. And then what we need to do is we're going to give these both of them the same padding. And what we can do here is we can actually go and say, you know what, I want to be able to see my before element. So the element that's going to be on top, which is going to be my before, let's just give this a comment. So this will be my top element, and my after element will be my bottom element. Okay. Perfect. Just so I know which one while I'm working on this is which. Let's go and give both of these the exact same padding as the button. And so how we're going to do that is we're just going to say, okay, padding, let's use our variable var of button pad y, so top and bottom, and then we're going to go var button pad x. Okay, so now both of those match the exact same padding as our button. Let's also say our before element, we want this to go above. So we're going to go ahead and just do a transform on our before element. This is going to be at the very top. So we'll go transform, translate, helps when I spell right, translate Y, and we'll go negative 100%. Okay, so now it's at the very top. And so we can see now we have two different elements and we can actually style them on hover. Now let's give this a transition on hover so we can push down both the texts at the same time. What we'll need to do here is, let's say on our top element, let's just say root on hover. Let's target the before element, and we are going to transform the translate of Y back to 0. So let's push it back to where it needs to be in the middle. Okay. And then let's push down this one. So I'm just going to grab this. Let's copy and paste it. Our bottom element, we're going to do a negative of 100%. So that should push to the bottom. Oops, 100%. Oh, and I actually need to make this, that's wrong. We need to make it on hover. So we'll go root on hover. Let's target our after and do a transform of 100%. There we go. Now it's pushing down, but let's give it a transition. So let's go to our on before, not on hover, our normal state. We'll go transition, transform. Let's do 0.8 seconds. And then I'm going to use a cubic Bezier that I kind of messed around and played with one of the generators. So I'm going to throw that in. And now we can see, okay, that's moving down smoothly, but let's copy this and let's do it on the after element as well. So that on hover, both of them should move. There we go. They're moving smooth. But here's the thing, I'm repeating myself, and we never want to repeat ourselves. So let's go and tokenize this. I need to have a transition duration and a transition timing. So let's go to our root, write a couple variables. We'll do transition, we'll go duration, and we'll call this 0.8 seconds. And then I need a transition timing, and I'm going to paste that in there. Oop, I just need the cubic Bezier. I don't know if that's how you say it or not, but okay, there we go. Now let's go ahead and put those tokens in. So let's go to our, I'm just going to copy it, var transition. I'm going to go var transition duration, and let's also put it in here. Okay, and I also need my timing. And let's go ahead and change out that cubic Bezier for the timing so we can sync it all up. And this one too. There we go. Okay, now it's still working. Perfect. Now let's give this some, what we want to do is we want this to actually be hidden, right? We don't want the overflow to be hidden. So let's go to the root and let's do overflow of clip. Okay, now the text should animate in. Perfect. But we want the top piece to kind of bring in the hover background color. We don't want the button to actually change its background color. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say on root hover, I want to set its background color to the default color. So let's this could be this var button background. So let's set and we'll set this to important just in case to make sure it's always going to stay the same. So on hover, we want to keep the exact same background as the non-hover state. So it stays whatever color that is, right? And we want to bring in the hover background hover color. So let's go to the top element, our before element, and we'll say on this one, we want the background color to be the var button background hover. So that should bring it in. Yep, okay, there we go. It's bringing it in. But also if we take a look at this animation, we can see that it does need to be rounded. So it needs to have the exact same border radius as our button default. So let's go to our before element and we'll go border radius of var button radius. Okay, so now it's bringing in that roundness as well. Cool. I think the only thing we need to do left is probably like a little transition thing, which I'll show you in a second. And also the text colors. We want the default text here, so the after element, to have the default button text. So the color here, that's the hover after. Let's go var button text color. Okay, so whatever the default color is, and then on the before element, we want to bring in the hover color. So we'll go var button text color hover. And there we go. Now it's bringing it in. And so let's test this out. I'm going to duplicate this button here. And on this button, let's go and put this side by side. There we go. On this button, I'm going to add button outline just to give it an outline effect so we can make sure, perfect, it's bringing in the colors that it should. So I can add this to any of my buttons that are using the ACSS variables. Now there's one more thing that I want to do with the animation. If we kind of hover over this, it's very, very small, minute. But when we hover over this, the top piece kind of almost collides with the bottom one and then pushes it down. So what I want to do is I want to slow down the bottom animation on hover. So they kind of collide a little bit and it looks like it's pushing it down. So I don't want the same speed. So if I look at what we have right now, let's just close this. If I look at what we have right now, it's moving at the exact same speed. It's really small, but really the best design is in those little details. So we're going to go to the root hover after, and we're going to change the transition of transform, and we're going to do a calculation. I want to increase the duration. I want it to be double the speed. So we have 0.8 seconds. I want it to be 1.6 seconds. So we'll go to the var transition duration, and we are going to multiply that by 2. And then I need my var transition timing. Okay, let's save that and let's take a look. Did I mess it up? I did. It did not put a var on the transition duration. There we go. It pushes into the bottom one and then pushes it down. So I think we're good. I think that's all we needed to do. Now we have a single class that we can add to any of our buttons that are using the ACSS variables, and it's going to automatically have this animation applied to it. Nick from the future here. I already uploaded this video and I had to take it down because the buttons were not accessible with what I'd originally shown. We have to make one change. So screen readers by default, when you use pseudo elements, if it has text content in it, it will read those. So the screen reader will say, start your project, start your project, start your project for this button. And we don't want that. So we need to add an ARIA label. So we'll go to the attributes and we'll just type in ARIA label, and it needs to be the exact same text as our link text. So now we're good to go. It's only going to announce the text once. Now here's a caveat to this animation. If you want to change out the text of the button, you have to do a couple things. So let's go to the second button here. And I want to say this is actually view gallery. So not only do we have to change the text here in the link itself to view gallery, but we have to go back and change the data attribute here to view gallery. So we have to do it in multiple places, which is sometimes hard to remember. So there is a video, my last video I created, I show you how to make a component. I'm going to add this in here and let's remove this other one. I show you how to make a component where you can actually sync the two things. So we'll kind of say this is going to be view. Oop, don't know what that did. We're going to say view gallery. The button link will go to, let's just say custom URL of hashtag. And the button class, I want this to be a button primary. And then I want it to be a button outline. Save, view it on the front end. And look at that. We can see it's synced on both things. So not only did we only changed the view gallery in one spot, and it updated the link text and the data attribute. My last video shows you how to do that and make a component out of this. So definitely go watch that. And that's it. You guys made what looks like a pretty complex animation in a really simple way. Just one single class and yeah, you're done. Now, if you're ever in need of any dev or design help, or you need some consulting, I am available for hire. I do have a link down in the description. Would love to chat with you about your project or getting you where you need to go. I have more videos planned, so I'm looking forward to making those, and I will see you guys in the next video.